What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Thomas, bringing you another edition of the Thomas Take. Tonight, live, I'm going to give you guys my bracket. Now, I'm not going to go through the full thing. This is the 2017 March Madness NCAA tournament, and this is probably the first bracket I've done in its entirety for the first time ever. I'm not really a big basketball fan. Most people know that about me. I like college better than the NBA, but I'm not a big basketball fan. I'm a contact sports fan, whether that be football, mixed martial arts, hockey, baseball. I'm a baseball purist. That's the sport that is nearest and dearest to my heart, being that was the game I played for a long time, and that was a sport that was in my blood, of my dad and my grandfather, and my uncles and cousins and stuff. So basketball was just never a sport that I really became a big fan of. I liked the 80s heyday and stuff like that, but other than that, I'm not really a big fan of it. As big a fan of it as I should be, but I got into this bracket and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. So my Sweet 16 in the East, I have Villanova and UVA, Baylor, and Duke on one side on the East side. In the Midwest, I have Kansas, Purdue, Oregon, and Michigan. I'll start off with the Final Four, after that. I have Gonzaga, Notre Dame, FSU, and Arizona in the West. And then the Tar Heels, Minnesota, UCLA, and Kentucky. The Elite Eight, I should say, would be Kansas versus Michigan, UNC versus Kentucky, Gonzaga versus Arizona, Duke versus Gonzaga, and then Michigan versus UNC. So my Final Four is Duke, Gonzaga, Michigan, and the North Carolina Tar Heels. I have Michigan as the 7th seed moving forward in the tournament, beating Kansas, beating Oregon, beating Louisville, and beating, obviously, Oklahoma in the first round. So Michigan will beat Oklahoma, Michigan will beat Louisville, Michigan will beat Oregon, and then Michigan will beat Kansas, and then Michigan will beat North Carolina. That's my wild, wacky prediction. I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about the March Madness. I enjoy the tournament. I think it's pretty awesome. There's always a pretty entertaining upset involved in the tournament, but I'm not as big on it as most people. But I thought for the start of tonight's show, I'll talk about my bracket and who I have in it. Duke versus Michigan in the championship game. In Glendale, Arizona, I have Duke winning that game. Michigan's long, valiant run will go for naught, and Duke entering this East bracket as the 2 seed, Villanova losing to Duke in the Elite Eight, would put Duke in the Final Four matchup with Gonzaga, and Michigan beating the Tar Heels, Duke versus Michigan, and Duke winning the championship. Very physical team. Obviously, Grayson Allen has gained some steam, obviously, for his play. Obviously, Coach K keeps these guys on their P's and Q's, so to speak. Crosses the T's, dots the I's type coach. And I kind of went with the 2 coaches that I know very well in the collegiate game. Technically, 3 coaches that I know very well in the collegiate game. Duke, Michigan, and the University of North Carolina. I'm going with the local boy, John Beilein, who is the head coach of Michigan's men's basketball team, obviously, and he is a local boy from Lockport, New York, so that is part of the reason why I have Michigan going as far as I do. There's a little bit of bias involved there, but Michigan beat the snot out of Wisconsin before the tournament, so I'm interested to see what happens. What happens with Michigan? I think that they have some newfound momentum. That's just my prediction. And, there's millions of these that are made. Not many of them are made exactly to a T right. You have the round of 64, the round of 32, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and then the championship. And there's no telling, how wrong you'll be. One matchup calling it wrong could throw the whole bracket off. So it's pretty interesting. The college game has been so much more progressive than the pro game, and this tournament has gotten bigger and bigger every year. So as the tournament gets bigger, I'm going to look to continue to take part in it. So I got Duke, Michigan going up against each other in the championship, and Duke winning it by a score of 88-75, a moderately high-scoring game. Also, we got a few games coming to Buffalo. Villanova playing Mexico State, I believe, and I'm not sure who MS. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what that stands for. And then we also have the Notre Dame game will be in Buffalo as well. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to try and get tickets to that game. I'm off Thursday from work, so I'm going to try to go to that game. I'm really hoping that Notre Dame can make up some ground in this tournament as opposed to years past. There were some years where I thought they would be a bigger force in the tournament, and they were not. Notre Dame plays Princeton, and I have them beating Princeton, beating West Virginia, then losing to Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. Notre Dame could not make a shot for their life in their last game. I hope that changes, and I hope it changes fast. But I'm pretty happy that Buffalo is getting some games in this city at the KeyBank Center. Villanova coming the defending champion. Villanova, I have them all the way through the East bracket up until they played Duke in the Elite Eight, losing to Duke, and then Duke beating Gonzaga. Now, there's major questions as to whether Gonzaga is for real, but I do think they are for real. I thought that streak was pretty remarkable. So, I have them in the Final Four. North Carolina, they're really tough to pick against, but I went with the Cinderella story, the 7th seed Michigan cruising through the Midwest bracket and then getting to the Final Four versus the North Carolina Tar Heels, coming up just short to Michigan in that semifinal. And then Michigan losing to Duke 88-75. I think I would be more of a basketball fan if I had a pro team. I'm a Celtics fan. I'm a Bills, Sabres, Red Sox, Celtics fan. So that's kind of the only reason why I'm a Celtics fan is because I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. And obviously, I loved Larry Bird, even though I wasn't really around to watch him play. The history of the game at that time, the popularity that him and Magic brought to the game in the 80s, and then MJ came along, that was an era of basketball that I would have loved to have been a witness to that era, and I think that basketball has kind of fallen on star power a little bit too much because of that era, where stars are joining forces now, where back then it was a privilege to join forces because you were representing your country, and now there's practically Olympic teams within the NBA. So, it's exciting, it brings intrigue to it, but the competitive nature of the game, I feel, has been challenged, and even the competitive nature of the NCAA tournament has been challenged heavily based on the fact that players decide to leave early. Kentucky's John Calipari lets guys leave early, lets guys leave after their freshman year. They're not even men yet. College is a avenue in which boys are grown, nurtured to be men. They're brought through the system, and that does not happen anymore. We don't see that anymore at the rate that we used to in the 80s and 70s, and before that in the John Wooden days of UCLA. Now everything is just so different, and I think there's some rules that need to be established. I think guys should be able to partake in a minimum of 2 years, at least 2 years. I would allow guys leaving the team after 3, but these guys are so talented that they want the money right away to change their life and their family's life, so they decide to leave. Kyrie Irving is a big example of that. He left the NCAA, went into the NBA, It took him a few years to really evolve as a player, but boy, has he evolved. He's the best point guard in the game, one of them. Definitely the best point guard in the Eastern Conference, and in my eyes. And without Kyrie Irving, the Cavs don't win that last NBA final. So, power to them, but I feel like guys should play a little bit longer, and then they would have more immediate success at the National Basketball Association's level. So that is my Thomas take on March Madness, the NCAA tournament, the NBA. Why do I feel the NBA is at a point in which it is at right now in my eyes, and much more. So thank you guys for tuning into part 1. Part 2 coming up next. See you soon.